Welcome to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast, brought to you by Deets on Man Productions.
He's been hit by a car and he's kind of in repose on Adams Boulevard right now.
Say what you mean and mean what you say.
The things you think are the biggest problems you've got right now are really not that big a deal.
I can assure you that the statistical probability of death remains constant at 100%.
Oh, man.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Enjoy life.
This is Scott Townsend. Welcome back to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. It's the #1 podcast in the world about Col-Hi Wildcats. And today I have with me a special guest. I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'm just going to list off some things, see if you can figure it out. This person's on page 84 of the Col-Hi yearbook. Went to First Baptist Church. Was on the golf team, I think. Was in a singing group called Priority. And has the distinction of being hit twice with a golf ball by me while we were playing on the golf team. Welcome to the show, Scott Crawley.
Hey, thanks, Scott. Appreciate you having me.
You remember that?
I was thinking last night that you went out for golf your senior year.
Yeah.
And you got better. I remember seeing like 138, 133. It just kept getting better though. That was you, right?
That was me. Yeah, that would be me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruno let me on the team just because I think he felt sorry for me, and
nice guy.
There was not much else I could do. So
yeah, I got sick of throwing up on the track field, so I went out for golf my senior year. Yeah.
And I think you and I were paired up quite a bit, and that's why. I mean, when you're playing with me, you got to watch out, man. You got to stand way back. But
yeah,
I think I hit your ankle. Yeah, I think I hit your ankle on a worm burner, and then the second one was right in the middle of the back off a drive, and
it's my fault for being in front of you, or maybe I was beside you. I'm not sure.
No, you were ahead of me a little bit, but
okay.
Yeah, that was crazy. Anyway, So what's been going on, man?
Oh, a lot. Obviously, in 40 years, there's a lot of water under the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But, you mentioned I was with Priority, so a bunch of guys from Bartlesville got together, and we started singing. We went to OBU together, Oklahoma Baptist, and got a record contract in Nashville. So after a year and a half of vocal performance, decided let's just move to Nashville. We don't need to have them teach us how to sing anymore.
Right.
So we went out there and ended up having a lot of fun. We sang for about 13 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
Recorded 7 different albums. And we were trying to decide between country music and Christian music. We did a couple of country shows with some Oak Ridge Boys stuff and realized it left us a little bit void. I love country music, don't get me wrong. It's just not what we were created to do. So we chose to go the Christian route. And for the first 7 years, we waited tables to support our habit. And then the last, 5 years, we were full time. So we ended up getting a bus and hitting the road and living the dream. But then I began to realize that provision is more than money. I had kids, and more than just them eating. They needed a dad. My wife needed a husband. So in 1994, we got off the road, and I started looking, and ended up in the insurance business. I hate insurance. Yeah.
You hate insurance.
Yeah. Well, nobody likes it. Something we buy, we don't want to consume. If I buy a Big Mac, I'm going to eat the sucker. If I buy insurance, I don't want to use it. So I hate it. I hate paying the premiums, but I have to have it. So I like people, and I like numbers. So, that kind of fit. I mean, let's make the numbers make sense, right? So it's not a sales pitch, that's truth. And you got to have it, unfortunately, in this world.
You going back to high school. So what memories of high school, when you think back to 1982, College High, what are some of the first things you think of when you think of those days?
I think the most vivid memory, I'm very much into the senses. So the smells, so that stuff they used to put on throw up in the halls. Remember that?
No.
You don't remember that?
I know what you're talking about, but
Yeah, they put it down there and then sweep it up. Yeah, I would know that. My entire.
did that happen a lot?
Oh yeah, it wasn't me. Mine was on the track field, not in the none of the halls. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. You asked the question.
Yeah.
I'm getting old, and we all are. I've enjoyed every one of your deals, Scott. In fact, you need, and I think I told you this the other day, you and Stacy need to like franchise this, patent it, and because every class in the country would love to do something like this.
Right. Yeah.
Craig Turner, that I used to sing with back in high school, and then also with Priority, he was in town. He actually still lives in Nashville after all these years. We moved there in 1983, 84. Anyway, he just got through the 81-80 because they combined their reunions.
Oh, yeah.
Because they couldn't do the 1981 because of COVID.
All right.
And so I was telling him what you were doing, kind of prepping everybody. And he's like, he was very jealous, very, very envious. So I think it just sets the tone. I think it'll increase the participation in a reunion because people are, going to be a little bit more familiar. You walk up to somebody and go, now, who the heck are you? My memories again around the senses, and everybody you've talked to so far has been like the teaching was so great, and I'm sure it was. But my life was more around social and music and choir and football and sports, and that was what I was encompassed in. So all of my memories kind of go back to that. I remember. We moved to Bartlesville in 1979, so the end of 79. So I was kind of a transplant, so I didn't have all the elementary roots and everything that a lot of people had. So we're kind of a stranger in a new land, but we moved from Northern Virginia, and up in Northern Virginia, the schools are massive. I mean, there's 3,000 kids in the school, and there's a school 4 blocks away that has 3,000 kids. And I love football. So as a freshman, I'm out playing football. And of course, I get to summer camp a little bit late. And so I get to sit on the senior bus and sing Old MacDonald Had a Farm all the way to camp. And I got to be the duck. And I mean, they hazed you. They treated you ruthless. And then Dad got a job in Bartlesville. So we moved from Northern Virginia to Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
What did your dad do?
He worked for the Department of Energy up there. So he worked at NIPR, National Institute of Petroleum and Energy Research. He's one of the ones that was responsible for extracting oil from shale. Okay. So he was a part of that for the government.
Oh, that's cool.
He says basically what they're doing now is not the way he intended it. And the fracking, the way they're doing and injecting wastewater is causing the earthquakes. And anyway, long story, but it's a pretty cool story. But we moved to Bartlesville, and of course, football was the very first thing. We came in the fall, and so I got to go in. There was the first year that Mickey Ripley was the coach, so it was kind of nice having somebody else that was new, that was in charge. And I don't know if you ever were in the locker room there in the stadium. But again, my senses go into overload when I think about the trough. I won't go there. But anyway, there was a Coke machine. And this is really going to date us, Scott. But I took my dime and I put it in the Coke machine and it got stuck. So I'm banging on the Coke machine. All of a sudden, this big shadow comes up behind me. I'm like, oh, crap. And I turn around, this big old guy with a red beard. And I don't know if you remember Darrell Reese. But he ended up, I think he got killed. He rode a motorcycle, like a Harley or big Honda or something. He was
he our class?
No, he was a senior.
Okay.
And he was huge. And so I feel this shadow come up over me there at the Coke machine, and I turn around, I'm scared to death, thinking about back to my Virginia days. And he said, what happened? And I said, well, my dime got stuck in the machine. I'm scared to death. He gave me a dime and said, try again. I loved Bartlesville at that point. I mean, I absolutely loved it. You know,
You and Daryl were best friends after that.
Oh gosh, yeah. I don't think we ever talked again, but at least, I wasn't afraid of him. And you know, we share some incredible memories of, you know, those 3 years of high school in particular. You know, such an important part of life that kind of molds us and helps us become, you know, who we are. And the memories are priceless, you know, completely priceless. I remember James Dennison, some names that hadn't been mentioned on any of these, and Johnny Hensley.
John Hensley, yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of heavyweights that didn't quite get along on the football field. So they were scrapping out in front of the stadium. You know, that's a heavyweight fight that us little guys got to stay out of the way or we're going to get killed. Right. And nobody got hurt. You know, I think they walked away respecting each other a little bit more after the fact, but I remember that. You know, all kinds of things. Lorinda ran in choir, for those of you that are choir members. You know, she was awesome. You know, I learned how to write a check in home ec. So I did learn something, yeah. Every time I write a check today, I remember home ec.
In college, I used to say, as long as I have ink, I have money. As long as I could fill out a check, I had money.
Yeah.
So you're, you know, in high school, maybe one of your favorite classes was?
Study hall.
Study hall, yeah.
I love study hall because I could catch up with Roger Staubach, all the stats. You know, I could read his stats and remember everything.
Really?
But I read one of the textbooks, I couldn't remember a thing because I didn't care. I didn't see how it applied because I was gonna be a singer, you know.
So you knew what you were wanting to do when you were in high school. I mean, so you thought when you grow up, you're going to be a singer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you always ask the question, what did you say when you were growing up? What do you want to be? And everybody asked that. And so I was dead set on this. I'm going to play football for the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, really?
End of story. Yeah, it's going to happen. And when I stopped growing at 135, 5'8", I realized I better change my plans. So I started thinking, what else do I love to do? Right. And I love to sing. So whenever people would ask me, they said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to sing. They said, no, what are you going to do for a living? I said, I'm going to sing. You know, and there was something in me that said, yeah, I can do that. And my size doesn't matter in that. Right. And it just matters about, you know, I don't know. I just believe we're created to be alive. And I think we need to find out what it is that makes us come alive and go do it.
You're talking about your size. It seems like in priority, all the other guys were like a head taller than you were. Is that right?
Well, they were all at least 5'6". No, I'm just kidding. I'm like 4. No, they were.
Brian Rose and what were those? Who were those two guys?
Kurt Young.
Kurt Young.
So Brian and Kurt were from Sooner.
Yeah, Kurt Young was Dr. Young's.
Yeah, Cy Young's son. Yeah, and he looks just like Cy now. I mean, the whole "This Is Us" thing. I mean, what happened? Phenomenal tenor singer. Brian was phenomenal bass singer. Craig Turner was our lead singer at the time, and I sang baritone. So we were all Bartians, if that's still a word. They were definitely in the 6 foot range, and I'm like 5'8", so that makes them look very tall next to me. I'm good with that.
Yeah, heck yeah. So fast forward, we've graduated, you're out there and you're singing now.
Yeah.
So did you just go off and start singing after high school? Is that?
Yeah. We went to OBU, studying vocal performance, as I mentioned earlier. And about a year and a half in, we had the opportunity to get a record contract offer. So we just quit school, moved to Nashville, and recorded our first album. You know, we got jackets that had the label on them, Benson Records, with Sandy Patty and Larnell Harris. And Actually, Benson wanted us to have this young guy come in and be our keyboard player to get some exposure and travel with us, but we couldn't afford to pay him $400 a week that he needed. His name was Stephen Curtis Chapman. Yeah, that might have
Well,
been
there
a
you
good
go.
to say, yeah, come on. Yeah, but you know,
Wow.
there's politics and everything, and you know, I'm not going to get into the whole story of that, but ultimately the reason we did it was we felt like we were given a gift and we wanted to give it back, you know, to glorify the giver. I mean, that's why we felt like we were created. One of the songs that we sang, and it was interesting, we were living back in Oklahoma. We drove to Nashville to record this one recording, and we're going to sing a song called Holy of Holies by Jaron Davis, same guy that wrote Standing on Holy Ground, for those of you that remember Christian music back in the early 80s. And I couldn't even talk, you know, my voice was out. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I slept under a vaporizer. I'm, you know, inhaling all this stuff, trying to get my vocal cords. And I started singing, I sang the song. And after we got done, I couldn't talk again. You know, that song was basically about the Holy of Holies. I'm not going to get into the story of that. You can study it. Was nominated for a Dove Award for the best recorded Christian song of the year, best inspirational Christian song of the year. It didn't win, but hey, just to be nominated is pretty
Right.
cool. And just to realize that, yeah, it was pretty much miraculous that ever got out there. But we had a blast. You know, we did an a cappella Christmas album. We actually sang at, I remember Brian and I in 1989, Brian Rose, the bass singer, we were walking down the first hole of Paige Belcher. And things had not been going well. I mean, as far as being able to make a living, we're still waiting tables. We have kids now, it's time to grow up. And we both kind of admitted maybe it's time to give this thing up. So, and I mean, I literally, and I'm somewhat of an emotional person, but a tear rolled off down my cheek. I was thinking, dang it, man, that's my dream. This is what I always wanted to do. But at the same time, if it's time to move, it's time to move. And it wasn't a week later, we got a call from Silver Dollar City, which is a pretty cool thing. They'd heard our most recent album. They needed a quartet to come sing on the park. So we obviously accepted that opportunity and packed our bags and moved to Branson. We did 5 concerts a day, 6 days a week. We got to sing to 5 million people a year. Wow. It was amazing.
So you would be in the park, singing a cappella.
Well, we had a keyboard player.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so people would be outside, or did you have a hall that you sang in?
We sang at the gazebo right as you come in the main entrance, and it was under the trees and had a lot of park benches and stuff like that. But it was, you know, just a true concert setting. You really have to hold their attention between the, you know, the candy corn and the, you know, all the smells that were going on, all the senses. But it was a blast. I mean, it was a crash course in singing and communication. And I was recently listening to some old concerts of the concerts before Silver Dollar City and then after our first year. And it was really good before, but it was like incredibly tight after. So it's amazing how repetition, everybody thinks because you do it so much.
Right.
That was a blast. We had a great time.
So talk about your family. Tell us about your family and what's going on. Are you married? Oh, you said you were married. You said you had kids. You had the support. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's
I'm
fine.
back.
They're good. You're getting old too, I think. How's your golf game, by the way?
Haven't done that in a very long time.
You know, for those that are listening, that are in the area that still love to golf, let's get a bunch of guys together. In fact, we have a group of guys that get together, have lunch here in Tulsa quite a bit. And it's a blast. I mean, Chris Service and Tracy Robinette and Marty, Gordy Falcons, that whole This Is Us thing. I never would have known that was Gordy. Greg Brewer, you talk about somebody who hadn't changed. My gosh, he can still play. Matt Newman, I think he's kind of the ringleader of that little bunch. And I said Chris Service, but we were a really good time. Get together after hours or whatever. But it'd be fun to get a bunch of guys together, maybe even if not quarterly, just to play golf in the area. I
Right.
played with Mark Troxel and Kent Hudson.
Oh, that's cool.
High school, yeah. When I run into them, we realize we have that in common. So those who get out there, let's get together. Let's get a game.
Thank you for listening to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. And we'll be right back after this.
Adventure. That's where it begins. We look to create and document our moments in time while embracing the majestic wonder and beauty of the great outdoors. Our quest is to explore the back roads of the Ozarks, camping, fishing, and just getting lost. Refresh your spirit and join us on our next adventure.
Paul and his crew invite you to subscribe to the Cast-A-Fly Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel.
But yeah, my main influence as far as people that I hung out with, obviously at school, but was church. It was First Baptist, and I know that Butch mentioned that group and how tight we were. And so that's how I know a lot of people from Sooner, because obviously that was a conglomeration of both, and ended up marrying a girl from Sooner.
Oh.
And we started dating the day we graduated. You can remember the day that I started basically dating her. And that summer, I'd made a promise I'd never tell somebody else I loved them unless they're going to be the one I was going to stay with forever. And we were on a youth trip in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know if you went on that trip with us. And that's when I realized I love this girl. I want to spend the rest of my life with her. And so I'm not going to go through the story of that, but I said, I love you. And she signed the contract. She reciprocated. So that was pretty cool. And then we were at Falls Creek a few weeks later, and we were literally just talking about growing old together, living happily ever after, having kids and blah, blah, blah. And that's happened. So I think I sent you a picture of this, but we just celebrated our 37th anniversary in March.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
Takes a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. On both sides, What's interesting is, every night that we go to bed, we go, it's another day done. What do we do today that made a difference? And I think that should be the way we live. And tomorrow we get another chance. So that's kind of on my bucket list, is to make a difference in somebody's life on a daily basis. And I just tell her I love doing life with you, and it's cool. Fun. And it literally just gets better. I think when you verbalize those things, you truly begin to realize I do love doing life with her.
Right.
When we were parents and we have 3 kids, your lives are consumed, right? With activities, with golf, with band, with all of these things. And then the kids all go away and you're going, who are you?
Hi, my name's Scott.
Yeah, right. Let's kind of get reintroduced here. And we found out we still liked each other. So
somebody asked me the other day, said, how long have you and Celeste been married? And I said, happily or the whole time?
Happy is a relative thing, somewhat subjective as well. But so we've been married 37 years, and things haven't gone all according to plan. She married a risk taker, and I told her up front, I said, listen, I'm going to be on the road. That's what I'm called to do. And she is a very independent person, so she bought into that. And we have 3 beautiful kids that we were able to, just like my parents did, invest into them, into their passions. And my oldest son, his passion was very obviously music. He loves sports, but music was just overbearing as a part of him. So we got him a guitar, we got him guitar lessons, piano lessons, all that stuff. I bought him a sound system for his band. I was the sound guy at every gig they would let me be a sound guy. They entered the Battle of the Bands at Kane's Ballroom, Tulsa World Satellite Battle of the Bands, and a song that my son wrote, and they recorded, and they went in and just blew everybody away and won.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and today he's a worship pastor. So it's cool, to be able to help my kids realize what makes them come alive and invest into them, and to realize that is now his job. And he just wrote this song. It is phenomenal. It's called More. They just released it Sunday. He's 32 years old now. It's crazy. My son is 32. It's hard to even say out loud. And it was just amazing. So cool to see him living out his purpose. And we had a daughter. She was a great basketball player. Her name was Lauren, and a phenomenal singer. We built a sound studio in our house, and she went in and sang Celine Dion, "My Heart Will Go On." And so I called Jordan in, her big brother, who's the artist, and he's going like, "That's my sister." Wow. It's just amazing. It's so cool. And her passion was to be a missionary. She wanted to go to places in the world with people who've never heard of Christ and tell them about it. And then my youngest son is Jonathan, and he's 26, just recently married. He's a COVID marriage. And by the way, my oldest son, they were a COVID grandbaby. So I'm a grandparent now. I'm Pops. My wife, Alicia's Lolly, and I'm Pops. You can steal that.
Let's go to Lollipops.
That's right. So we sing Lollipop to him every night and then break into harmony. It's so cool. I love being a grandpa. That can't be overstated how cool that is.
I've heard about that. Yeah, Matthew's his wife's expecting December, and everybody tells me how cool it's going to be, and I'm sure it will be.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, seriously, you can't even, usually if somebody's going to a movie, I don't want to overdo it because it's never going to live up to the billing. Yeah. This blows any billing away. Being a grandparent, love it. Well,
is there a certain point in the kids, when the kid's born, is there a certain time when then it becomes fun, or is it fun from the get-go?
It's fun from the get-go because I don't change the diaper, so it didn't bother me. They stink, I go here. What do you do with this thing?
Yeah, where are you guys?
And and every stage is so special. It just truly is. He's not quite walking yet. He's 13 months old, but he's starting to stand on his own until he realizes he is, and he sits down. Yeah, and just love him. And he is amazing. His name is Nazareth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never.
So kids would call him Naz, right? You think?
Yeah, I call him Naz. Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty cool nickname.
Yeah, he's awesome. But
so
my youngest son, he wanted to play baseball, and then that got too political, so he thought, let's do golf. The cool thing about golf is nobody can tell you whether you can or can't play. Right. We know that, right? Right. If you're good enough, you're playing. That's why we didn't play. And he got really good. He started when he was 13, and by the time he was a senior, he was all-state. Wow. The best senior in the state in 3A. It was the first round he ever shot in under par for the 3 rounds for the tournament. Was his last round he ever did. Around the 18th hole at Lake Hefner Golf Course, there were a bunch of parents around there who weren't even part of our school, but around all of them said, listen, this is my son's last competitive event. I wanted him to play golf in college, but he wanted to focus on academics. Go figure. Yeah. And anyway, so I had everybody stand and applaud when he gets done. And they didn't know him, but he made his last putt. Everybody stood up and applauded. He put his hands in the air like he just won the Masters. And I'll never forget it. But it was so fun to invest in him in that way. And I wish I could say right now he's a professional golfer. He's not. He's young. He's still trying to figure out exactly where he wants to go. Right. But love being a parent. Absolutely love it.
Your wife is an author. She wrote a book.
Wonderful Counselor. Wonderful Counselor. It's a journey from grief to healing. February 11th, 2008. I'm sitting right here in this chair. My daughter Lauren and my son Jonathan, he was 13 at the time, came by to get the vacuum. We just built this building, and I'd stolen the vacuum cleaner from the house. My wife wanted it back. We live maybe a mile from here as the crow flies. And right here on Elwood and Main Street, if you know the thing with the levee right there, for those of you that know Jinx. And my daughter wanted to join Sky, which is a fitness club in South Tulsa. And I said, sweetheart, we have a fitness club in our house. We have Bowflex and all the elliptical and the weights and all that stuff. And she said, but Dad, I said, no, but honey, we'll talk about it when I get home. Earlier that day, I'd had lunch with a guy. He was a manager that had flown in from Chicago. And we were at Ron's Hamburgers, in fact, where I met Butch, a few years ago. And I was talking to him, and he had a 13-year-old son who had passed away, and I couldn't even go there. I mean, it was my greatest fear. And I didn't even bring it up because it was too painful for me to even talk to him about it. I couldn't imagine what he was going through. Couldn't in a million years imagine. 3 hours later, my daughter came by here. They got the vacuum cleaner. She left. I heard sirens, blew it off. I mean, there's sirens all the time. I started getting phone calls and didn't answer, but it was the same number 3 or 4 times. Finally, I did. And they said, your kids have been involved in an accident. And so I immediately left here. I mean, they were 30 seconds from me. And unfortunately, 16-year-old girl, brand new driver, thinks she knows how to do everything, right? We all did at 16.
Right.
Unfortunately, didn't put her seatbelt on. She barely got off the road. And when she tried to get back onto the road, she had overcorrected and ended up going out into a field and flipping the truck. She didn't have a bruise on her body. Not a bruise, not a broken bone, not a scratch. Unfortunately, on the last revolution, she was ejected. The truck rolled over on top of her. And my son, Jonathan, who had a seatbelt on, got out of the car. Again, no scratch on him either, and tried to push the truck off. Obviously, he can't. So I had my son, my oldest son, on the phone. He was at OSU at the time. And I said, Jordan, pray like you've never prayed in your life. And then the police officer leaned over to my wife and she screamed. And I knew exactly what had happened. My worst fear had become reality. Something that I couldn't even entertain 3 hours earlier with a guy that I was having lunch with. I was now part of the club. And life changed immediately, Scott. I mean, just immediately. And in my heart, I'm going, God is good. He didn't do this to her. So I thought, I know eventually I'm going to see something good come out of this. So immediately I said, God, I can't do this alone. I need to know that you're here now. And I heard him say 2 things, not audibly, but with that still small voice. And they were so comforting. I heard this. He said, Scott, I was there when the accident happened. Lauren's fine. And then I heard this. He said, I'm here now. You'll be fine. And spontaneously, 300 people showed up at our church because they knew that we were there, and they came there to pray for us and just support us. And I went around to every one of them, thanked them for coming, and said, don't worry about it. She's fine. We'll see her again. That is peace that surpasses any human comprehension, much less mine. I was able to see beyond the temporary, right? And it was so cool that God is faithful in that way. And, another thing that's really interesting, and I mentioned earlier, she wanted to be a missionary. In fact, we have this, I need to send you a picture of it, but it's perfectly misspelt, with her stating in church, here's what I want to do with my life. And it's so, again, that's what she wanted to do, go into the bush of Africa and preach where people had never heard of Christ. That's what she felt her calling was. And I told you she sang My Heart Will Go On. Well, they actually played My Heart Will Go On during the montage of her pictures at her funeral.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Celine Dion, Lauren, singing My Heart Will Go On as her life went before. Victory Christian Center let us use their facility. There were 2,000 people that came to that service, and it was life-changing. It was a party. She said, I want my funeral to be a party. She'd already mentioned that to her friend. So we had balloons and confetti, and they talk all about their whole life all the way up to the funeral. They had it all planned. And interestingly, she had sung a song a few weeks earlier in the studio. She came to me and said, Daddy, I want to record. I said, let's go. You don't tell me twice. And this again was a few weeks before the accident. So we went in there and she's got her headphones on. She has one ear on, one ear off, and she's singing the song. And she gets done and I'm in tears. Again, I'm emotional, but this was one of those things that I can't go there. It's a song about a girl who dies and how her life becomes a lighthouse for others. Yeah. And I said, sweetheart, why that song? You know, I mean, it was beautiful, but it's sad. And she thought about it for a second. She cocked her head sideways and she looked at me and said, I don't know, Daddy. I just feel like I'm supposed to. Yeah. Yeah. So the fact that she wanted to be a missionary, we started a foundation. In fact, I don't have a tattoo. Both my boys have tattoos. My wife got a tattoo. I'm scared of needles. So I got this little plastic thing that says in loving memory of LMC. It's been on my arm ever since. I mean, that's my tattoo. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And so we started a fund. We had a little bit of life insurance that we never expected to use. Again, that's one of those things you buy, you don't want to use. But it was for accidents in the event of that. It's one of 100 different benefits that I sell, but it was a part of a package that, again, I didn't buy it for that because it wasn't going to happen to me.
Right.
But we took that, we put it into a fund. We started the Larmouth Show Crawley Youth Mission Fund. I think that's the technical name, and raised about $45,000 in a week. So we started a scholarship program. We send kids in her place, you know, so we kind of help fund, you know, their mission. Found out there was a need for a church in Ghana, West Africa. They had the land, but they didn't have the money for the church. So we petitioned the foundation, can we use some of this money to build Lawrence Lighthouse? So several years ago, we went over and dedicated Lawrence Lighthouse. My wife just got back from Ghana about a month ago. She's been over there a lot. The cool thing about it is the pastor of the church, his name is Godly, and he goes out into the bush of Africa and he does revivals. And he identifies people in the bush who want to start a church. And they come back to Lawrence Lighthouse and they have a pastor training school. Scott, they've graduated over 300, and that may be cutting it shy, pastors to go into the bush of Africa.
Wow.
Something that would not have happened without this tragedy, right?
You're right.
So this is triumph, and I'm going to show you some of what I'm seeing. You don't have to look hard. You just have to look. Why would he deny showing us part? I mean, we don't know in full. We won't know until, you know, the missed parts.
Right.
But on the other side of this mist that we can't see through is something called hope. And I choose to hang my hat on that. Yeah. Who knows? And I sent you a picture on this. I want you to show it after sharing this. The day of the accident, Scott. I'm not going to keep going through all this. I don't know how much time we have, but the day of the accident, when life changed, I went to the front door to lock the front door. And I looked out on the front porch and there was a box. All right. Something in my heart jumped. I had no idea what was in the box. And, you know, when Paul talks about the resurrection body, he's trying to describe this physical body versus the spiritual body, right? And whether you believe it or not, doesn't change the fact. It's a fact. It's going to happen. And he says, basically, we're a seed now, and a seed has to die, be planted in the ground before it ever becomes what it was meant to be, right? Imagine an acorn is really an oak tree. So that's the difference between this and what it will be. And our job in this life is to water and fertilize seeds. That's why we exist. That's why every day I get up, I want to make a difference in somebody's life. I'm going to water seeds. And, you know, that's what we were created to do. Well, here's what was in the box. Every year, my wife gets a Precious Moment figurine delivered randomly in or around her birthday, which is April 16th. This happened to show up on February 11th, 2008. All right. And I opened it up. Well, when I saw the box, and this sounds weird, and this is something I did out loud about this volume, I said, thank you, God. I mean, I felt stupid for saying it, but I felt like there's something in that box that God's going to use to edify, because I need something now. And I took the box in and I opened it up, and it was a Precious Moments figurine of a little girl on her knees with a packet of seeds at her knees, a spade in her hand, as if I'm not done, plants growing around her, and a sign stuck in the ground that says community garden coming soon. What?
Drop the mic.
What? Can you imagine the size of that community garden? as much as I would never wish that, it's so cool to know that a lot of good comes out of it. If we just look, and that's really, and my wife's journey was slightly different. I mean, the world went dark to her. And this is not a sad book. This is a book that anybody who wants to have an eternal perspective should read, because that's what it does. You know, there are counselors out there that are incredible human counselors, but the Holy Spirit is the wonderful counselor, right? You know, and nothing wrong with using both. Definitely use that one, right? And so her journey was a slightly different road, but ended up in the same place. And yeah, God's good, period, end of story. Yeah, all the time.
Never teared up on a podcast before, so
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's a very impactful story. That's and I'm like you with that other guy earlier. I can't imagine
Yeah.
you know, even
Yeah.
thinking about something like that. And
I don't want it to happen
I don't-
again, but
I don't know how people go through that. I don't know how they get through it.
yeah. You know, it's life. You know, we talked about growing old, living happily ever after, and we had no idea. Just like I listened to all the guys that you've interviewed, we didn't know what we were getting into when we walked out into this world.
No, I know.
You know, we just went out with our arms open and said, "Come on," right?
Bring
And I
it.
don't want to ever stop doing that.
Mhm.
I don't think at any age that I don't want to go out and try to do something I've never done. You know, I want to learn something new every day. The only way to do that is to get out of my comfort zone and try something I've never done, you know? And so I have very few goals, but, you know, I didn't get to live my dream of playing for the Cowboys, but I got to sing. Dadgummit. You know, I became self-employed. I told you the last time we talked that I have 2 PhDs actually from 2 different schools.
2 PhDs.
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Scott. Yeah.
I should have wrote that down on the
Yeah.
on the list of things. PhD, really?
2
So
of them, Dr. Scott, yeah. One's from the U of HK and the other one's from MSU. U of HK is the University of Hard Knocks.
Oh.
And MSU is making stuff up. I'll keep it PG. But seriously, life is a series of lessons. Some of them
Yeah.
are far more expensive than others, right?
right.
But
Mhm.
if we don't learn from those, and then believe me, I've had some expensive lessons. In fact, we talked about one right before we got on here,
Yeah.
trading options. That was an expensive lesson. Hopefully it works out all right.
Oh man.
So yeah, it's cool. You know, we're kind of sailing off in the sunset of life. Basically, we're past the halfway point.
Yeah.
Things are beginning to deteriorate a
Thanks
little
to
bit
remind me.
and mentally. So while we got it, let's take it. And forever we'll have some.
Yeah.
Anyway, not to get totally philosophical, but love life.
We're probably coming up on the end of the hour here, and I'll ask you the question that I've asked everybody else. You know, so you see Scott Crawley at 18, and what would you tell Scott Crawley, knowing now? What would you tell him then that you know now that you think he needs to know?
Don't change a thing. You're going to screw up, learn from it. But just go do what makes you come alive. Don't change a thing. I take that back. Scott, make a note, mark it down. On February 11th, 2008, tell your daughter to put her seatbelt on. That would be the only thing I would change. That's my only regret. Yeah. Anyway.
Man.
Yeah. Scott, thank you, man.
Yeah, this has been great.
I love your
impactful.
heart. Yeah. You know, you were always the quiet guy that you could just sense was a really, really neat guy. You know, you didn't do anything to hurt people except hit golf balls at them. You know? Yeah. I sense that's still who you are.
Yeah.
In spite of your "this is us" moment, as you morphed into a 57 or whatever old you are now, 56,
Right.
57. Yeah.
No, it's been a lot of fun. This podcast has been a great experiment, a great a project. And
How much you get paid for this?
It's just
No.
this is my love letter. This is my love letter to the class of '82. Let's put it
Well,
that way.
thank you. Could not be a better one. Yeah. Awesome job, Scott.
All right, man. Well, all right. I'm not quite sure how to end it after all that, but for Scott Crawley, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for watching, listening to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
The Last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast is a Dietzo Man production. For more episodes, visit the Last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.